Welcome back to Politics Nation. As President Trump is targeting American cities, we're also following some other political stories, too important to simply slip through the cracks. Joining me now to discuss them are my political panel, political strategist Mike Madrid. He is the co-founder of the Lincoln Project, and Lauren Leder, co-founder of All In Together. Lauren, let's start with Kilmar Alberto Garcia, the Maryland man who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador, who was finally reunited with his wife and children on Friday. The Trump administration now says they want to send him to Uganda as early as this week, unless he pleads guilty to charges that would send him to Costa Rica. First, they admitted he was detained by mistake. Then they insisted he was a dangerous gang member. Then they charged him with transporting undocumented migrants for money. He has pled not guilty. Why do you think this administration is willing to spend so many resources just to make sure this one man cannot simply return to his family while his case is being tried?
Well, I think part of it is that Alberto Garcia was one of the first really high-profile cases of, unlawful, warrantless detention and deportation from the United States in the early weeks of the Trump administration. And it really terrified people because it was the story of somebody really just being picked up off the street, and the government acknowledged that they were wrong and yet could never acknowledge and make right their wrongdoing, do right by him. They've continued to insist that even though somehow he was deported by accident, that he is still a gang member. I mean, they've just litigated this in the court of public opinion for weeks and weeks. I think, look, we should pay attention very closely to this case. What I worry about is, of course, the thousands of other people who've been deported to other countries without any process. We've been seeing lots of video of people being picked up off the streets of American cities and in communities across the country by, goons wearing masks with no warrants and no licenses. And by the way, we've also seen women now getting picked up and victimized by people who are imitating or pretending to be ICE agents, because it's so common that ICE agents are picking people up without warrants or other documentation that now other criminals are taking advantage of it. It's very disturbing.
Now, many Americans may not know this yet, but postal services around the world, including the UK, France, and Germany, have suspended U.S. deliveries because of Trump's tariffs on small packages that went into effect on Friday. Also on Friday, the president announced his administration was taking a 10% government stake in Intel, one of the world's largest chip manufacturers. Mike, Republicans used to believe in two things: free trade and free enterprise. This president has turned his back on both principles in unprecedented ways. Why did they continue to support him?
Well, let me take it a step further and say we used to also believe in no taxes, but Donald Trump ran on the highest tariff increases, which are taxes, in modern history. So it's an anti-free trade party, it's a government intervention and ownership party in the private sector, and it's all about raising taxes. You ask exactly the right question, which is why? What has happened to this party? And the answer is Donald Trump has found a way to keep people continually focused on these cultural wars, these cultural affronts, literally, whether it's about jeans sales or kneeling at football games or Cracker Barrel logos or the Kilmar Garcia case, so that he can advance an economic policy entirely contrary to what the GOP base has believed for the better part of 40 years. You're exactly right. Everything that was foundational to Republican beliefs has been completely upended. And this gives a perfect example as to why Republicans once disbelieved in it, is most businesses are looking for consistency in order to make a profit. Everything about Donald Trump is completely inconsistent, including all the way down to product manufacturers and small sellers on Etsy trying to make a small living online are going to hit a wall this weekend as they start to realize that there's nobody that's going to deliver these products from most places overseas. That's before the tariffs go into place. So
now,
all of this...
My reaction is still pouring in about Ghislaine Maxwell. DOJ interview, her interview released on Friday, including from the family of Virginia Giuffre, one of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged victims who committed suicide this summer. They accused the Trump Justice Department of invalidating the experiences of a sexual assault survivor. During the campaign, Trump vowed to be a protector of women, whether they like it or not. It was a strange promise to make back then. It seems even less credible now, doesn't it?
100% less credible now. They're rewriting history. They're making up an entirely new narrative based off of the facts of a woman who was involved with the most prolific human sex trafficker in a generation, maybe ever in this country's history. So she has every incentive to lie. He's giving her every opportunity to do so. I feel that I'm heartbroken for the Giuffre family, who's basically said this is unconscionable. They're still grieving from the loss of her taking her own life a few months ago. And for the President of the United States and this administration to be putting forth a fake narrative, rewriting history, it's unconscionable, but all too common in this current White House.
Lauren, speaking of promises, Trump also made the remarkable claim during the campaign to women and couples that he would make sure vitro fertilization would be covered for everyone who wants it. Now the New York Times reports his administration has begun to embrace so-called restorative reproductive medicine, a practice endorsed by conservative Christians that suggests lifestyle changes as an alternative to IVF. Is this yet another bait and switch? And do you think MAGA Republicans will pay any price for it with women voters?
I mean, of course it is. And this is exactly why so many of us were worried about Donald Trump and his record on anything and everything related to reproductive health, because of course he is the president who aggressively worked to pack the Supreme Court with justices that would and then eventually did overturn the foundation of reproductive rights in this country, which was Roe v. Wade. So why anyone would take his word on IVF is beyond me. And we were all concerned about it from the beginning because the Christian right has for years said that IVF somehow was, out of line with their values. The problem is that millions and millions of Americans have come to rely on IVF, and to now be pushing kind of in this Make America Healthy Again sort of gaslighting of healthcare, pushing this like absolutely religious-based, science-free perspective that somehow if you just exercise more and eat more vegetables, you're going to solve your fertility problems. It's just so insulting to the millions of women who've struggled with very real fertility challenges of all faiths, of all backgrounds. It's ridiculous. They need to back off and let science and doctors do their jobs.
Lauren Leder and Mike Madrid, thank you both for being with us. As we mentioned